Hello everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. And weight is such an issue. We talk about it every day in the office. Most of the people coming in here have weight problems, so we'll keep talking about it every day in the office. But I've had several inquiries about the Weight Watchers program for kids. Actually, there are two of them. And I started looking into it. The more I looked into it, the more I thought I should just create a nice long video about this whole issue of children and weight. So the whole story starts in February of 2018 last year. Weight Watchers announced that it would start offering free memberships to teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17. And the company said in a press release at the time that the goal was to, quote, assist in the development of healthy habits at a critical life stage. Well, my gosh, you thought that the world was coming to an end. The internet blew up with negative responses to this. One dietitian wrote that many of her eating disorder clients reported that attending a Weight Watchers meeting with a parent triggered their eating disorder. According to this dietitian, parents should not take their children to meetings focused on weight because the message to the child is something is wrong and it needs to be fixed. I'll come back to that in a minute. Today's Parent featured a story written by an overweight woman by the name of Amanda Scriver, who writes, and this is her quote, "When you look at my body," and there's a picture of her on the site, "there's no way to escape it. I'm fat. It's the first thing you'll notice about me. As much as it may make you uncomfortable to admit, it's okay because I've finally grown to the strength to not care what you or anyone else thinks. This is my reality. I'm fat and I'm proud." She describes her experience of joining Weight Watchers while in high school, encouraged by a family member, while acknowledging that the teen version of Weight Watchers requires adolescents to attend with a parent, so there are some controls there. She takes issue with the idea that, quote, fat is inherently unhealthy and that it's better health-wise to be thin no matter what the cost. She thinks it would be better for parents to teach their kids that all bodies are good bodies and that you can be happy and healthy at any size. Well, first, this issue of making kids think they have a problem. I think most kids know that they have a problem before parents make any attempt to do something about it. They're overweight or obese and they know it. It's hard to ignore, and let's face it, it's not much fun being a kid, even before you factor in being overweight or obese. I remember not being a very happy kid and waiting for adulthood, thinking that would be better. Adolescence is known as being an awkward time, and being overweight can make it even more so. It's harder to participate in gym class or athletics and sports. Wearing fashionable clothes can be challenging. I've never met an overweight person, including an adolescent, who was happy with their weight status and said, you know what, it just doesn't matter. I'm just going to stay this way. Another issue, going to Ms. Scrivener's point, is that all bodies are not good bodies and people are not healthy at any size. Overweight or obese adolescents often have many health issues associated with their weight status, such as asthma and allergies and sleep apnea and high blood pressure and acne and heavy menstrual periods, painful menstrual periods, headaches and joint pain. It's hard to have any of these issues and not know that something is clearly wrong, which is a powerful motivation to want to do something about it. And I think if Ms. Scrivener would just take the time, or Scrivener, or whatever her name is, to look at research studies concerning her increased risk of developing serious conditions like heart disease and cancer and type 2 diabetes and autoimmune disease and dying early, she might not be so happy and content to be fat and might be pretty motivated to do something about it. The dietitian's allegation that one Weight Watchers meeting is, or even participation in such meetings can trigger eating disorders is patently false. Ann Lutz is the dietitian's name, and she claims to work with people who have eating disorders, but her comments indicate a profound misunderstanding of the cause of such disorders. Now, it's true that some people develop eating disorders from serial dieting, and in most cases, anorexia nervosa and bulimia, however, are psychological issues which cause individuals, usually female adolescents and young women, to restrict food intake as a means of feeling more in control of their lives. There's a lot to do with family dynamics, and the most successful treatments involve the whole family. So this just isn't something that, you go on a diet, the next thing you know you have an eating disorder, or if somebody says something about your weight, it triggers eating disorders. That's just patently false. So I don't imagine she's probably very helpful to the people she's working with. Additionally, I think attending a Weight Watchers meeting with a parent is a much better idea than ignoring the problem or lying to kids about being happy and healthy while being overweight or obese. We don't do this, by the way, in any other aspect of children's lives. I mean, if you have a child who's having trouble in math, what do you say? I don't want to embarrass the child, make him feel bad about doing badly in math. We'll just look for an occupation where you don't have to know how to add and subtract instead of hiring a tutor because we don't want him to feel bad about himself. I mean, solving problems is what parents are supposed to do for their children. And I'm certainly not saying Weight Watchers is the best solution, but I'm saying that people are dancing around this issue in a ridiculous way that isn't very constructive in terms of looking for a solution. The bigger issue, in my opinion, is that the critics, including the dietitian Ann Lutz, are missing the biggest problem with Weight Watchers, which is the fact that the diet is unhealthy for anyone, whether you have a weight problem or not, and not just adolescents. So I went to the website and I looked at the portion of the site that says everything is on the menu. There's a whole section. And it says you can, quote, eat what you love and lose weight with Weight Watchers Freestyle and our updated Smart Points system. A suggested breakfast is egg over red potato with kale and bacon hash and coffee and milk. For lunch, all-American turkey burger with squash fries is listed. A cheese, nut, and fruit plate is the recommended snack, and dinner is spice-rubbed flank steak with fajita vegetables and a light beer with a chocolate pizzelle fruit tart for dessert. Now, the portions of these foods must be minuscule, because I can tell you that if I started eating any kind of regular portion of this type of food, I would double my size in a fairly short period of time, not to mention the fact that the multiple servings of animal foods and the very high fat content of the diet would be very concerning in terms of increased risk of things like cancer and heart disease. Weight Watchers, in response to all of the negative feedback, we're going to get back to the problem with adolescents, refused to change its plan for teenagers in spite of all the critics, and Mindy Grossman, the CEO, just dug in her heels and said, we know this is the right thing to do. Instead, what Weight Watchers did is they've just expanded their reach to younger children. And they just started offering a free nutrition and weight loss app for kids age 8 to 17, so it covers the teenage years too. It's called Kurbo, K-U-R-B-O, by Weight Watchers, or WW as they refer to themselves now, and it includes features like breathing exercises and an interface type thing to encourage regular physical activity. Kids and their parents enter their height, weight, age, and health goals and then start entering their food intake into the app. Kurbo uses the traffic light system, you might be familiar with it, to help kids choose foods. Green items are go foods, you can have as much as you want. Yellow foods should be consumed in moderate portions, and kids should stop and think about red foods before eating them. And then there's some video coaching available for $69 per month. Well, this has generated even more controversy than the adolescent program. On the one hand, advocates say that traffic light systems have been shown to lower calorie intake. A study that was conducted at Mass General didn't involve Kurbo or Weight Watchers, but it did show that during a 2-year period, the use of traffic light systems for rating foods resulted in an average 6.2% decrease in calories per transaction and a 23% decrease in calories consumed from the most unhealthy foods. Now, this study involved 5,700 adults, and they were purchasing food in a hospital cafeteria. But the point is, in principle, this type of thing works. A strength of the system, according to Dr. Gary Foster, Weight Watchers Chief Scientific Officer and Adjunct Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania, is that Kurbo does not restrict unhealthy foods, but instead reinforces healthier eating patterns. And I agree with him when he makes the comment. He says, you don't want kids thinking about grams of this and ounces of that. And the goal is never to say you'll never have a cookie again. I mean, that kind of stuff just makes me crazy because it's insane. He says it's progress, not perfection. And again, I think he's right about that. Critics point out that efforts to help young children to lose weight, again, the eating disorder. You take a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old and try to do something to trim him or her down, and you're going to trigger an eating disorder. I read one of the studies cited by critics of weight loss programs for kids, and the article concerned high-risk adolescent females and identified risk factors for developing eating disorders as including idealized thinness, body dissatisfaction, dieting, particularly while having a low BMI, and mental health care. So at-risk females who diet in spite of being lean in pursuit of an unattainable vision of thinness, or who are victims of bad mental health care. Most mental health care is pretty bad. I don't know what that has to do with 10-year-olds who might benefit for thinking just a minute about what wisdom in choosing cookies instead of a banana at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I don't think that this is the best way to go about it, but I think the actual criticisms that are being levied against the Weight Watchers programs are completely off base. There is no program, let me say this for the record, that can address a parent who doesn't recognize an at-risk kid and the need for intervention. And while eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia are deadly, fortunately, these really do impact a pretty small percentage of the population. According to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Eating Disorders, 0.9% of American women will develop anorexia during their lifetime, 1.5% of American women develop bulimia, and 2.8% develop binge eating disorders. Now, on the other hand, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, almost 31% of U.S. children are overweight or obese. So I think we have to deal with the much bigger, no pun intended, problem and not worry so much about the small percentage of people who develop eating disorders, which I don't think have anything to do with Weight Watchers and red light, green light foods. I mean, this is insane. Nonetheless, the National Eating Disorders Association, or NEDA, issued a statement claiming that Curbo is a bad idea because it involves kids monitoring and self-reporting what they eat and sets weight loss as a goal, which the organization says is a bad thing. Echoing some of the other nonsense, the group says that doing so without any monitoring by a medical professional presents grave risks, and that includes the development of eating disorders. Most medical professionals don't provide any healthy eating classes or advice and or monitoring, so the monitoring by a medical professional isn't even available. So throwing that out as some type of alternative is really, unless you're dealing with some of the doctors that are associated with us, it's not really going to happen. Like Ms. Scriver, NEDA thinks that children should be taught that a diversity of sizes is natural, and this is just not true. It is not natural to be overweight or obese, and being so increases the risk of almost all chronic degenerative conditions. NEDA goes on to say that many of the children who will use this app are going through puberty and are supposed to gain weight. This is patently false too. I mean, as children grow, they're always going to gain weight as part of their taller size, but there's no evidence that healthier eating interferes with natural growth and development. And so again, it's a lot of insanity about nothing. I was just astounded when I started looking into it. NEDA also says there's no evidence that weight loss will be maintained if lost, and I will acknowledge that that's probably true. But we do have evidence showing that childhood overweight and obesity is not getting better, it's getting worse. And so this group encourages parents not to use the app because of its risks, but I think that not doing something has a significant number of risks as well. Well, going on, a pediatrician expressed her concerns, which include that the plan is skewed toward promoting a low-fat diet, which she says, quote, makes satiety difficult and may be inappropriate for children with ongoing neurodevelopment and pubertal change. She's concerned that chicken and beans are yellow choices while avocado and peanut butter are red. I mean, it's just almost unfathomable that in this land of overweight and obese people, including children, anybody is thinking that eating more fat is a good idea. It's interesting to me that as I read all of these critics, none of them came forth with what they thought would be a better plan that made any kind of sense at all. They just were critical. None of them were talking about how bad the eating plan was. They're just talking about, oh my gosh, talking to children about losing weight and improving their health is terrible, and they're all going to develop eating disorders, and it's better to teach them that they should just be okay with being fat. I just don't agree. The American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement in 2016 advising both doctors and families to focus on healthy lifestyles instead of weight loss, which is the best approach in my opinion. If the whole family adopts a health-promoting diet and lifestyle program, exercise and eating well and that sort of thing, everybody benefits, including the parents. Discussion about health on an ongoing basis can lead to an understanding, even in young children, about the value of investing in your health and the benefits of developing a healthy athletic body and maintaining it for the rest of one's life. The bottom line is that with proper supervision, Weight Watchers program for children and adolescents is not as bad as some people are making it out to be. The food plan is awful, but behavioral and support components of the program have always been reasonably good, and I think we could all learn something from that in terms of how to make our own programs better. The worst option is to do nothing and hope that it's going away. Kids' weight problems are not going away. They're getting worse instead of better. So this isn't going to be resolved without doing something about it. The best option for doing something about it, I agree with the AAP, is get the family involved and making it a family project rather than isolating the child and saying you have a problem and we're going to fix it. But again, I'm going to come back to this. As parents have an obligation to take care of their children. And this involves doing things that are uncomfortable, sometimes confronting problems with children. They have inappropriate friends, they exhibit inappropriate behaviors. They have trouble in school, they make bad decisions, they gain weight, they have health issues. The job of a parent is to help the child resolve those issues. It's not to tell the child, sorry, there's nothing that can be done because the risk of doing something about it is going to make you feel uncomfortable. Believe me, a kid who is having difficulty with friends or in school or with their weight or with anything is already having difficulty. Ignoring it is not going to make things less difficult. It makes it more difficult. So I hope this analysis helps. I would steer you toward better programs, better ideas than Weight Watchers, but I think we have to make sure we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and we don't take the other side as presented, all these people screaming about Weight Watchers. I think their ideas are terrible. I think we can do better than that. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you on next Tuesday with more news.